Hello and welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. Today, our special guest is Nithish Sairam, and he has a company that he is CEO of called Illumine-I. Did I get that right, Nithish?
That was spot on. Thank you for having me, Sean.
Okay, yeah, thanks for being here with us. And so I see that we have some things in common, like you went to school in Arizona and I like to hang out there because my daughter lives there. I saw this old guy run around. His name is Mick Jagger, so the Rolling Stones, and Keith Richards wasn't running around so much, but he was there, and that wasn't too long ago. So that was kind of the fun thing that I did in Arizona this year. In fact, while we're recording this, I'm going to be in Arizona actually a week from today, staying at my daughter's house. So that'll be kind of cool. And I also have some friends there and stuff, but it's kind of warm there. You're not in Arizona now, though, I guess, right?
No, interesting that you mentioned a lot of memories from Arizona. A lot of memories from school, obviously, but that's where I had my first job at Tesla. I was out of their Glendale office, and my career launched out of Arizona. I had my professor who got me into this. I still visit him almost every year, try to catch him up for Christmas.
So it seems that right now you're more of like an entrepreneur than working for a company like Tesla. Is that correct?
Yeah, today change paths.
Yeah.
It's still in the same industry though.
So I was just talking to somebody yesterday about that and all the differences. Like I'm more of an entrepreneur and I don't work for big companies, and I'm kind of afraid to work for big companies because I don't want somebody walking by being in a bad mood and going, I think you're just fired today. I don't have a really good reason, but I just kind of feel bad, or whatever they do, you know. And so I work really hard to get where I am. And then it would scare me that just the thought of having somebody else having so much power over me that they could fire me. But then there's comforts when you're working for a big company and things like that, like health insurance, benefits. And a lot of times you get off at 5 or something like that. Instead of when you're running your own business, you have to wake up in the middle of the night and write something down that you just thought of. And there's a lot going on there, managing people, all that kind of stuff. So how long did you work for Tesla for?
Right out of grad school. So I was in Tesla from 2014 for about a year. And I kind of enjoyed working for the big ones, both Tesla and NextEra. I think I learned so much from there. If not, I think I would have probably had slower learning curve to do what I'm doing today. I kind of enjoy what I do today. I love getting up, being an entrepreneur, but I think those big companies with all the structures that they come with helped me because I was fresh out of college with absolutely no knowledge of what I was doing early on. So yeah, that was my experience with the big ones.
Great. And so I see that you have a lot of good education. So besides you're an engineer, ASU, and you did something with Stanford School of Business?
Yeah, I'm with Stanford Seed Program, and that's a program very custom to entrepreneurs running certain sizes of companies. And that's been fun. It's still ongoing. I graduate this December.
Oh, great. So what is it that you earn? Is it an MBA or something different?
It comes under the Stanford's Graduate School of Business. It's a program run by them. It's a program called Stanford Seed.
So Stanford Seed, that's like agriculture, like you plant seeds? You're learning about the farming business.
I wish I did.
Or more like seed money for businesses, something like that.
I think they consider us in those early stages just before where we sprout to become large firms. Again, just my wild guts don't hold me to it.
Okay. And so you're growing a company right now, and it looks like, just from looking at LinkedIn, it says that your company, which is called Illumine-I, has 200 to 500 employees, is what it says on LinkedIn right now.
That's right. So we're at about 270, 80 odd. It's teams sitting out of India and the US.
Mm-hmm.
So we have professional engineers and customer success teams out of the US. We have design teams sitting out of India and complementing each other to provide our customers with value.
Great. Well, so having that many people working for you and you're the CEO, do you ever just get in a bad mood and just start firing people? No, I was kidding.
Today, I think it often happens much lesser.
Can you do me a favor just right now? Like the next person that walks into your office, can you just fire them? I just want to see your power.
You're an entrepreneur, you know how that works. It's actually the other way around, where The more you grow, the lesser power you have.
Here, watch this. The next person that walks in the room, hey, you're fired. Just kidding. Nobody walked in the room. And these days, too, a lot of people that work for me, they're not anywhere near where I am. They're very far away. So great.
Good for you. It's a good thing. It's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's just like the COVID economy just kind of stuck with us, and there were some benefits. I'm always an optimist, and I'm trying to think of what's positive in everything. So COVID comes along, and everybody learns like, hey, I could work from home. I don't have to spend all this time commuting and getting mugged on subways and all that kind of stuff. And we could spend more time working, and people can go change a diaper, whatever they need to do in the meantime. And by the way, too, if you need to go change a diaper, we'll just pause it.
I'm an optimist too. Post-COVID, I'm still alive, so there you
Uh-huh.
go.
That's a good thing. Yep. I know. Unfortunately, I do know a couple of people that are not still alive that
Yeah,
passed away during the heat of everything.
bless his soul.
Yeah. And so maybe what you can do, I know you were saying that you have a lot of engineers, you can explain what Illumine-I does.
Absolutely. The way Illumina even started off was to solve for a gap. So when I moved from a large corporate, after Tesla, I worked for a smaller entity out of San Diego. It was a company called One Roof, run by David and Tyler Field, and they ended up filing for bankruptcy, but good lessons learned, great
Mm.
people still in touch. So what I saw was honestly, Tesla was my first job out of college, and everything that I saw, I took it at face value that this is how the entire industry worked. Can you blame me for that? I thought every company has engineering integrated, software is vertically integrated, technologies that we used to execute a project was vertically integrated. But when I moved to a smaller firm is when I realized engineers were difficult to hire in-house. People didn't have process expertise to bring engineering in-house, and they relied on freelancers. This was about a decade. 2014 is when I entered the industry. A lot of companies relied on freelancers. Greenlancer had this platform to bring on board a bunch of freelancers, but the difficulty was when my company was trying to use freelancers for projects, it was difficult to set codes and establish a certain set of ways of working with them because you cannot scale. Different freelancers work very differently. They're really good at what they do, but then you'll have to keep setting expectations for every one of the 50, 60 people you need to start working with. And there were very few structured companies out there. And all I was trying to do was solve for that. That's how Illumina started off. We felt, a platform or a company that can operate very similar to all the established industries like MEP, structural engineering for infra projects. Since solar is fairly new, it wasn't really that way. And we brought engineers together. EPCs would work with a particular platform like Illumina and set expectations. We would take care of how it gets delivered to different engineers, solve for their problems, provide value. So that's how we started off. And that's what we do today as well.
So you work for other companies and you do the engineering. And I know there's companies that do things like that. A lot of them do for residential. Do you do different size projects?
Yeah, we started off with residential projects, and today we are one of the largest independent engineering firm for the residential space. And we do at least 50, 60 megawatts of CNI, commercial scale
Commercial
engineering.
and industrial, is that? I always like to spell out the letters.
Fair. No acronyms. So that came from my years at NextEra. I was the project manager for the West and handling the scope of the 9 to 11 steps post-sale, pre-construction, taking a project from geotech to Alta, design engineering, all the way through permitting and financing. So
Maybe you could also explain, like, everybody knows what Tesla is, but they probably know different things. Like, most people are like, they make cars, they make energy storage, they do residential solar, they do commercial and industrial solar, or they do some of the biggest energy storage projects in the world. And so Tesla's kind of known for distributed generation, even though they do some big projects too, with especially with the energy storage. But NextEra, do you want to explain a little bit about NextEra? And I know a lot of people have heard of them, but they're not as familiar because they don't have a CEO that does all kinds of crazy stuff.
very fair. Yeah, NextEra is this 100-pound gorilla in the industry that generally is under the rugs. Nobody knew. Funny story, I interviewed for NextEra and I got a job offer. And post that, I called this friend of mine who I knew worked at the company. I called him up. I asked him, hey, I got this offer at NextEra. Is it a good company? Do you think I can take this offer and make the switch? He literally said, you're joking, right? Like, if you have nothing else, I'm keeping the phone down. So I interviewed, I got an offer, and I still did not know about NextEra until I went in. And then when I went to Florida, the head office, there's an entire town, Juno Beach, that relies on this one big company. So NextEra has two different firms, NextEra Energy Resources and FPL, that sits under NextEra. FPL is this Florida Power and Light that supplies electricity to 70-80% of homes in Florida. And NextEra Energy Resources handles all the renewables, the largest wind producer in the whole of US, one of the largest asset owners of solar and storage, and do a gigawatt of projects every year. So that's in short about my understanding of NextEra, but they do much more than this: oil, gas, pipeline projects, and things like that. A fun firm. I loved working there. But yeah, 100-pound gorilla that sleeps under the rugs that nobody knows about.
They keep a low profile. They don't buy social media companies yet or anything like that. And so, NextEra, utility scale, commercial, industrial, residential.
Primarily utility scale. And a couple of years before I joined, they bought a firm out of Oregon and got into the CNI side. I was working on power plants in the size of 2 to 20 megawatts. So that's the smallest they were doing. I don't know if things have changed in the last 5 years since I moved on. But yeah, primarily focused on large projects.
And like you said too, what other things are they doing besides solar?
Under the renewables, it's wind, solar, batteries, think EV charging stations as well more recently. And outside of renewables or clean energy, they have nuclear, oil and gas, pipeline, a bunch of other stuff that they have under their portfolio. It's a $500 billion firm and constantly growing.
Okay, and what percentage of that half trillion did you get in stock options?
I wish it was a significant portion.
And then I'm just looking at something on their LinkedIn page. It says they're a world leader in battery storage. So they're focusing on all that. And I don't know, is like how much is renewables and non renewables? Are they more non renewables than renewables?
10 years back, they were. Today, they're trying to add more and more renewables into the portfolio for different reasons. And like I said, they add at least a gigawatt and more every year
Hmm.
of renewables into the portfolio. So they're trying to balance out, add more renewables, but they started off, I think, more than half a century back with traditional sources of energy.
Yeah, you got to tell them to stop doing that, those other fossil fuels.
I'll tell them that Sean White told you.
Yeah, you should do that. And it looks like on the New York Stock Exchange, they're NEE. That's how you can look for Next Era Energy. Well, cool. It sounds like you had some pretty good experiences there. And so it also looks like with Tesla, you were doing more residential, I guess. And then you kind of worked your way up at One Roof, commercial industrial, and Next Era, more utility scale. Is that so? You got
That's a fairly good storyline of how I went about it. Yeah.
And I know that you're the CEO of Illumine-I. And being the CEO, are you also one of the founders?
Yeah, I am. So it started off as a side consulting gig trying to solve for this. And I moved back to India about 5.5 years now and jumped into it full time, scaled it from a small consulting side gig with a team of five to about 270 odd today.
That's awesome. That's a lot of growth, a lot of people. Do you have any advice for people? Like, how do you manage all those people plus do your job? Or is that just your job? Like, it's hard enough managing five people. You got hundreds. I guess that's why you got that Stanford business under your belt there.
Well, you saw right through me. Yeah, that's the reason I took the program. But I think a couple of good things I learned handling a team this size is the right people in the right places make big difference more than people can think. I think the second one that helped us at least get here is not persistence, but pivotal persistence. People talk a lot about persistence. You pick something, you keep going behind it because if the market doesn't need what you're selling, it doesn't matter how much you persist, you're not going to get there. So it's pivotal persistence, understanding what the market needs, understanding what your expertise are, and then going behind what you think is right. So I think that's one big learning for myself.
Awesome. So you're in, it looks like Chennai,
Yep.
and I've done a couple of intersolar conferences in India where they had me teach some classes there. I did two up north in Mumbai, also known as Bombay. And that was really nice up there with the intersolar. And then the other one was in Bangalore. And so I did a class in Bangalore. And it looks like you're closer to Bangalore and you're on the East Coast from when I look at the map. And it looks like it might be a beach town.
It is a beach town. That's the reason I think I stuck to San Diego and the Bay Area and Florida throughout my stay at the US.
All right. So do you got surfers there? Is there any good waves, dude?
There is a place called Kovalam, which I hit once in a while for surfing.
Hmm.
And
Do you surf?
I picked up surfing in San Diego, but
Oh,
I
great.
prefer sailing more than surfing. So
Oh, okay, good. I have a sailboat too. So,
you do.
yeah.
So I know who to reach.
Yeah, when you're in San Francisco Bay Area, just do some of that. And I did go to school in Southern California, and my friend was like, "I'm going to teach you how to surf." And we went out, and he's like, "You need a longboard." And I guess he called it storm surf. And the big longboard hit me in the head, almost knocked me out. And I was like, "There's sharks. I think I'm going to pick up something different, you know?"
A little more longer board makes it sailboat. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And then I did try learning to surf again one time with my friend in southern Taiwan. It was actually nice surfing. I mean, the other people could do it. I was just trying to learn on my own without any instructor or anything like that. But hey, it's never too late. I'm not giving up yet.
There you
All right.
go.
Well, yeah, it sounds really nice. And so what kind of customers are you looking for right now? Or do you have or anything like that?
We work with EPCs, developers, and IPPs. We work with some of the largest in the RESI, CNI, and utility scale space.
Are you focusing on US market, any market?
Unfortunately, we have been a US focused entity for the last decade. Right now, we've started exploring other countries. We are trying to get ourselves into Australia and UK, Europe. So let's see how this year turns around for us.
Yeah, I did a class in Australia like a little over a year ago or something, year and a half, something like that. And I really liked it. I liked going down there. That was on my bucket list. But yeah, there's lots of different codes and standards. It is kind of funny that there's people in different countries that know more about the rules and regulations, like the NEC and all that kind of stuff, than they do about their own country. You're probably one of them. You went to school, you lived over in the US, did business in the US, and we have different wire colors and different codes and all that kind of stuff. And so from what I remember in India, they go by something more similar to the British wiring standard.
Yeah, almost everything here runs on the British standard system, obviously from what was left behind 50, 70 years back. So the codes, the way we drive, everything is from them. And I don't think we've changed a lot.
Maybe when Gandhi went and got salt at the ocean, he should have taken all those British standards and just thrown them in the water.
I wish he did that, and
Uh,
there was nobody like you to advise, I suppose.
We interrupt you for a very important announcement. Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast has been brought to you by Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. That's right, Sean White is sponsoring his own podcast, and he wants to remind you to go check out some of his classes. You can go to SolarSean, that's solar, SEAN.com, and then click on the links to check out his classes. You can check out his heat spring classes, and you can also hire him to teach classes for you, like at your company, something like that. Now back to the show. I read somewhere, like I was looking it up about like driving on the left and the right side, that actually driving on the right side was in rebellion to the British driving on the left. And because if you're driving on the left, you're like coming at somebody with your right hand, if it's better for jousting and stuff like that. Do you do any jousting?
I don't know where you get your information from, Sean, but it sounds fun. I
Uh,
don't.
yeah, I do a lot of like Google searches and stuff, and I'm afraid to drive on both sides of the road. That's good reason to take an Uber when I go to some place that drives on the left side of the road. So,
I'll remember not to hitch a ride with you.
yeah. Well, my brother lives in South Africa and he came back to the US and he got into a head-on collision. So just getting to
Oh, please.
driving down an old mountain road with no line in the middle, and somebody came at him and he just reacted the opposite direction that he should have.
I hope he's doing good now.
Yeah, it was like it kind of messed up the car. And the thing was, he was lucky that the people didn't punch him because they were about to punch him. And he was like, "I'm from South Africa. I'm so sorry." They're like, "What the heck are you doing?" Great. So when you make the plans, are you doing all sizes of projects because you have hundreds of people working for you? Like all different sizes of projects from 1 kilowatt to 1 gigawatt, something like that? Is there anything you would turn
Ye-
away?
No, we don't turn away business, but we are very clear in what our expertise are. So we are an electrical and mechanical engineering firm. So we do everything from a kilowatt to a gigawatt. And if it's outside of our expertise, we say no. But based on size of work, we don't.
Hmm.
So, I mean, we don't go and pitch for sound engineering, but everything electrical and mechanical under the size we do take up.
You must have just listened to the podcast that I did with a sound engineer. Did you listen to that?
I did not finish that, but I started it. Yeah, I love the one with Nico Johnson, though.
Uh huh. Great.
That was the most recent one I heard. That was fun.
Yeah, he's a fun guy and he's a great podcaster. And by the time we release this, it'll have already happened. But I'm going to be doing a podcast at RE Plus in Anaheim at the
Right.
podcast booth. And so Nico organizes that and he's hooked me up. And so I have my time and everything that I'm going to be there. In fact, I was just listening to him interview somebody this morning while I was at the gym. So, yeah,
That's nice. Looks like I should give it a shot. You guys travel a lot, have fun, get to meet great people. I'm envious of what you guys do.
great. Awesome. So, do you have also a master in mechanical engineering? And I got another question for you too, just out of curiosity. So, you have all these engineers, and there's a lot of them in India, and you're working on projects in the US. Do people get their PE stamp when they're in India for different states in the US?
No. So it's the drafting, designing work that happens out of India. So we have an engineering team led by a guy, Eric Steele. He worked for Sunrun as well, apparently, before he joined us. So he heads our engineering division, sits out of Utah. He has a team of structural and electrical engineers across different states, and they do the engineering portion. And the designing, drafting is what happens out of India. So no, our Indian teams don't have PE stamps, but they understand the code standards. They work very closely with the engineering team and customer requirements.
Great. Okay. So the PEs are in the US, and then you're out there surfing in India with the people that are doing the drawings and the drafting and all that kind of stuff. All right.
Well, I wish that was my life every day.
Well, you never know. Like a lot of times people think of important things when they're doing other stuff. Like I used to do it when I was running, but I ran too much and I can't run anymore because I just ran it my body as far as it would go. And so I do other sports and stuff like that, but also just think, going to the gym, going to attorneys. They're always charging when they're taking a shower. I mean, ask any attorney, like, do you charge while you're in the shower? And they're like, yeah, I was thinking about your case. Sometimes it's like they bill for, 48 hours in a 24-hour day. It's like you got two sides of your brain, use them both, bill for each.
Yeah, I learned that firsthand this very recently when we had a team. I don't want to give the name, but we had a legal team for an investment that we were raising, and I got charged bonkers for it. So,
Yeah. Those attorneys, they're like real good people. Haha. Yeah. And also, like, running this company, how long ago did you start your company, Illumine
Illumine, yeah, we started 2015.
2015?
Yeah,
So you started in
right.
2015. And then when did you start really growing?
That was when I moved back to India, late 2018, early 2019.
Okay. So sort of like about 2019. And then you just started growing and taking off. And what's it like to grow? Is your company registered in which country is it registered in?
Today we're registered in India, US, Australia,
Mhm.
and getting ourselves registered in the MENA, the Middle East as well.
Great. Okay. Yeah. All
Yeah.
good places for solar. And then is it like the kind of company where you're getting like funding and all that kind of stuff?
So we've been a services only firm for the first 8 years of our business. And recently we raised a $2 million round that was to build products and expand our service offerings. So that's the way we vision at least engineering for the small projects to go about. And very soon, actually at the RE Plus, we'll be launching a product called IVE, which with all our expertise and knowledge of services that we have done, engineering services for the last 8 years, is going into a product, and the permit drawings required can be done on a product with not a lot of need for technical expertise, and that is going to expedite the way this market is going to scale and every way we can support. Because if Today about 800 odd houses go solar every year, and people are anticipating that at least 2 million to 3 million houses would go solar every year by 2030. For that to happen, US rooftops to go from 4% to at least, 40, 50%, it requires a very different approach. I don't think it's just engineering services companies that can help that growth. So we've put all our knowledge and expertise into a product and taking it to market this RE Plus. Look forward to see how the responses come about. We're calling it IVE,
And so, how do you spell that, the product?
IVE.
IVE.
Yeah.
And so, is it like an app?
It's a design tool. I think a good reference I would use is like how Photoshop is for experts. Canva came about and said you don't need to be an expert to use Photoshop. We can give you a bunch of templates and you can create designs. You don't have to be a UI UX designer. So very similarly, you don't need to build your own templates on AutoCAD and be an expert of a lot of things to do put together a residential permit drawing. I've has all those intelligence, kind of like a Canva. We have all those pre-built templates, requirements from AHJs, requirement from utilities, and basic engineering expertise sitting over there. So you put your inputs, it does all the math, calculates all the different probabilities, and gives an output, which you can then take it down to the AHJs for permitting.
Great. So, does it work with AutoCAD?
This is a cloud-based software, so you don't need an AutoCAD license. It doesn't make sense for you to pay for AutoCAD and a different software. It's a cloud-based SaaS tool, and you can just come online and use that.
So, cloud based SaaS is software as a service tool, and it's called IVE, IVE. And does that stand for something, IVE?
So we have a mascot for a company called iWaterson. It's a sea otter. It's on the website. It's a fancy looking sea otter with this t-shirt and stuff. So we decided to use its first name as for our product. And there's no rocket science behind the name. It
Uh-huh.
was just our mascot's name going out there as a product.
So, it's your mascot sea otter. Do you have like sea otters at home?
No, we don't have them here in Chennai.
Uh-huh.
It came about for a different reason. It's just the way that sea otters function. They hold hands and work as a tribe to make sure they don't drift away during sea currents and very aggressive when it comes to hunting. So we do the same. We work as a tribe. We're very aggressive with how we want to scale, grow. So yeah, it just represents, I think, us fairly well.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to see any sea otters, you go down to Monterey Bay, and that's where they have the Moss Landing power plant, which is the world's largest energy storage system. And I just saw that from this guy's house. It's up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, which is pretty cool. The guy's name is Matt Pace, and he's going to be on the podcast probably in the winter or something like that. So the sea otters, they also have river otters. And they have some over by my sailboat at Pier 39 in San Francisco at the aquarium there. And that's my favorite part about that aquarium is seeing these river otters going around. It's kind of weird that just like in the middle of California, there's otters like going in the rivers and stuff, like not just sea otters, but river otters. And I guess they're cousins or something, they're related to Ive.
Related to, yeah, at least that's the story we tell people.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a pretty neat pathway that you've had, working hard, studying engineering, studying business, growing a big company. So congratulations on all that. It looks like also when you were, I think, in college, you worked with like race cars or something.
Yeah. So actually, I came to the US to do my master's in mechanical. I was going to major in robotics and minor in renewables. So that's how I went about working on race cars for the team at ASU. But then Dr. Stephen Trimble, a professor, a mentor of mine, was the first person to introduce me to solar. I worked with him on a CSV power plant at ASU, and
Concentrated solar power. And so that was thermal, probably not PV, I guess.
that was
Imagine.
thermal. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
So this was 2012. I learned so much from him, and he introduced me to another professor, Ronald Calhoun, who had me work on wind projects. So I came with a very different vision, but Dr. Trimble pushed me a very different direction. I ended up majoring in renewables and ended up minoring in robotics, but no regrets at all. Even today, any major decisions, I give him a call. He has been, I think, more than a mentor,
That's pretty
definitely
cool.
a big reason as to why I'm here today.
So you got inspired by one of your instructors and
Yeah.
decided the race car business. Well, race cars, most of them are not electric, right? Was it Formula One race cars?
It was a Formula 3 car.
Oh, Formula 3 car. And I've read somewhere that Formula 1, or I'm not sure what even Formula 3 is, but it must be something like Formula 1, that they actually do have like batteries, like hybrid.
There is an electric Formula racing.
Formula E, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Formula E. There are teams that I know of personally who's participating as well. So interesting that, a lot has changed in the last decade. Racing is happening with electric cars, but I'm happy because a lot of innovation that comes into commercial cars happen at the Formula E circuit. If you take Ferrari, a lot of their technologies that they use in their commercial vehicles comes from their Formula One team, including simple things like their suspensions, their brake discs, and stuff like that. So it's good that there's racing happening in Formula E. From my perspective, I think a lot of innovation is going to come about, and hopefully that gets implemented in commercial technology.
Great. So, do you know for sure, like if the Formula One cars or the Formula cars have batteries in them that for like regenerative braking and all that kind of stuff?
The Formula One cars today, I don't know how much the specs has changed, but at a point, yes, regenerative braking was used. Every year, the regulations change. 2024 Formula Racing, I don't know if that's allowed or not. Literally every year, the rule book changes and people change the spec on the car.
And so I see another thing that looks like you were working on in school that looks kind of interesting is analyzing the wind flow over Meteor Crater. I guess that's like the Meteor Crater is like a park or something where there's just this huge crater somewhere out in the desert. Is that?
Yeah, so this is the project that I worked under Dr. Kalhon. He's this well-known guy in the wind space. A lot of companies use him for his expertise on research and development. And the project he was working on was there's a meteor crater out in the desert, and it acts as this perfect scaled down version of a valley. And it helps you analyze the wind flow to place windmills. So you don't need to actually have windmills out there in mountain valleys. This acts as a scaled down lab size version. So they were trying to analyze wind flows using LiDAR, and I was converting those data points, trying to understand and make sense of wind flow patterns that would happen in mountain valleys. It was actually a super interesting project.
And you said analyzing wind flow with LiDAR. How does that work? Because wind is invisible to LiDAR, I would think.
Yeah. So they had different things of particles that they used.
Oh, they put particles
Yeah.
in the air. Okay.
So there's a team that used to go offsite, capture the data points, and there was a team that sat in the lab, analyzed them, tried to understand what is the best height position for windmills being set up.
So maybe they just got like 10,000 dandelions, and then that would have helped measure it with the LiDAR because the lasers would have reflected off the dandelions. And light detection and ranging, that's what LiDAR stands for. And you can get depth perception with these lasers using the speed of light and all that kind of stuff. And this is how you get some of these cars, like the Waymo cars, have LiDAR on them. So that's how some people would see it on the street. And Meteor Crater, do you know how big across that is? I know I've read about that somewhere.
I don't remember the size, but a couple of football field size.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Meteor Crater is an impact crater east of Flagstaff, Arizona, and its diameter is about 3,900 foot diameter and 560 feet deep. So that's Meteor Crater, and you should go check it out. I should go check it out too. And it looks like it's kind of smack in the middle of Arizona. I don't know why I haven't seen that yet. It's probably kind of warm over there, but it's kind of up high in the mountains and stuff. And there used to be mammoths hanging out there and giant sloths. If anybody's interested, go check it out. And so at some point, a crater from space went down there and hit it 50,000 years ago. And I know that because some of my ancestors were there checking it out. And the information has just got handed down, generation through generation. So let's see, we should probably start talking more about solar and storage. And so is there any other things that you want to tell people?
So for the small projects, I think productizing is a good way to go about helping the industry scale. And for the larger projects, the need to work on value engineering and design for construction is becoming more and more evident because for us to meet scale and with permitting and both AHS and utilities slowing down, everybody's trying to figure out. I think Solar App Plus and a couple of good firms are trying to help out with the process. But as they do that, design for construction and ability to look at every aspect, every spec to reduce cost, pre-construction during material procurement, and during construction, finding ways to reduce time and material cost is super important, which I think very few firms consider. They sometimes rack up all the way to 1 to 3% of a project cost if it is done right. And I think that's a space that makes a lot of difference in a large project. And with firms trying to specialize in the way they do that, it's hopefully going to help EPCs and developers make more margins.
Great. Okay. So I do have a spot on my website, and I saw that your company's not there, and I'm going to put it there. And you go to solarsean.com, and then when you click on the menu, you can scroll down, and it says permitting, distributors, etc. And by the time that this podcast comes out, it's already going to be there. We're also going to put it in the show notes. And how do people find your company? Like, what's the company's website? And we can put, LinkedIn and the show notes and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Illumine-I.com, ILLUMINEI.com. And they can hit me up as well. Nithish Sairam is my name on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nithish Sairam. Thanks for being on Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage podcast and talking about your company, Illumine-I. And check out Illumine-I. And thanks for listening to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage podcast. To find out more, go to Solar, SEAN. That's SolarSean.com. Thanks so much, Nithish.
Thank you so much for the 45 minutes. I enjoyed. Really, I did. Thank you.
Thanks.